Celeste, thank you so much for the chance to chat with you. It really is a privilege I really appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you.
The film is beautiful. It's a joy. Um, it's an incredible story. It really, truly is. I really appreciate your honesty throughout. I think actually that's what makes it so special, as opposed to a traditional, bio documentary.
Yeah.
I was wondering, like, for you, I know she's your mother, but for you, what sets Polly apart? What makes her so special?
Mhm. I mean, there's so many things I think that set my mum apart. But I think there are certain words that are overused when we talk about people, and one of those is probably unique, because we're all unique, aren't we? Everyone is by nature unique as individuals. But my mother was. She really was unique as a person and really a one-off in so many ways. Um, I think artistically, and this is where she had the biggest impact, um, she was an artist that was not afraid to follow her own path, even when that led to, maybe losing out on opportunities or kind of material success. And in this day and age, especially in the music industry, it's hard to find artists with that level of integrity. And she was really prepared to risk a lot for her art. And she really didn't follow anyone. Someone says in the film, she didn't follow trends. She really did set them. Um, and I would say, but just as a person, she had a very unique insight into uh, what was happening in the world, in a way that, again, a lot of like musicians or punk rockers at the time weren't necessarily tuned into. And this was really reflected in her lyrics. And I think when people kind of praise my mum as an artist, I think what is consistent in terms of recognition is her lyrical output and just how prolific a writer she was.
Yeah, and this was an incredible time too. Like, what a scene to be on. But it's interesting too. I think the film, I think it might be even be your voice, I'm not sure, that says that she never considered herself a punk.
Mhm.
So with these incredible lyrics and speaking the truth of her culture, how did she see herself fitting in? What did she believe herself to be?
Yeah, well, it's in terms of the music, she liked to think of the music as high energy rock and roll. And she was quite adamant that punk was something that, the actual punks themselves, they didn't come up with it. It's one of these things created by, the media. um, and so she wasn't too fond of it, because obviously punk has a derogatory meaning, as initially the origin of the word, it's like a low life. So she didn't really like that. um, and I think she considered herself to be, a singer songwriter, I think, first and foremost. And she really admired the, female singer songwriters of the, 60s and 70s, people that you might not associate with, polystyrene, but, like women like Carole King, for example. She was a big fan of. And so she and Cat Stevens, and these kind of singer songwriter, I think that's how she saw herself.
Mm.
um and but then punk, was this kind of this vehicle really for her, that she kind of she understood that it was interesting what was happening and that she could do it, she could be a part of it, but I don't think it was really who she was, you know. Like she was maybe a lot more of a sensitive and introspective artist.
One of the comments in the film that I thought was really, really interesting is that the film argues that her sound cut through a glass ceiling of what a woman could do with her voice. I was wondering if you could address that. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so that is a quote from Vivian Goldman, who's a wonderful woman herself, artist in her own right. And so I think, you know, in terms of if we just think about the voice, you know, my mother's voice, what she was doing vocally was actually really radical for the time, if for any time really. But, you know, she was singing with power. And she was singing with aggression, which was really unusual for women at the time. When women singers, you know, they were not supposed to sing in that way. It was not considered feminine. And you know, nobody liked at that time a shouty woman. So you know, like she was definitely breaking a lot of stereotypes there in terms of, you know, how she was using her voice. Also the fact that she sang in a British accent and also in a London accent, which again, there were lots of other punks who were doing that. That was quite a thing, you know, a cool thing for punks was, oh, let's sing in our own accents, and that's going to be really radical. But again, there weren't really any other women at the time who were singing in that quite such an abrasive, like Cockney accent that my mother had. So I think that was really radical and important what she was doing with her voice there, because yes, it was really saying to, you know, to the public and to music fans, like, women, you know, women don't have to be feminine. They don't have to have like soft melodic voices, and sometimes they need to shout to be heard, you know. And you don't need to be put off by or intimidated by a shouty woman. You know, sometimes they're shouting for a good reason.
Of course, of course. One of the other things I thought was really interesting in the film, it sort of addresses her relationship, almost a battle with the image. You said before, like the term punk was sort of put upon them, upon that style, but there's lots of conversations about her, whether it's her style. There's that scene where she shaves her head, and I was wondering, you know, from what you know your mom, what that tension, what that was about, what the core of that relationship between her and the image put upon her.
Yeah, it was a constant struggle. My mother was constantly struggling with her sense of self, especially her image. And you know, I say in the film that before her sort of brush with fame, she was quite a confident young woman, and you can see that expressed in her clothes and the style. You know, she was having fun with her image, and she was being adventurous with her image, and it was eccentric, and you know, in the best English tradition really of English eccentricism, I think they say, and no, it's eccentricity. And but then unfortunately, you know, once she kind of got to a certain level of fame, then all the pressures, you know, started, and there was, you know, just comments on her looks that were not necessarily complimentary, people not really getting what she was kind of trying to do with her image, and just yeah, unfortunately, again, a lot of sexist and reductive you know, attitudes that she came up against, and it had an impact on her, definitely. And I think, you know, she became less confident in her looks, and less playful even with her style. And it was, you know, it was quite a tough thing. But I think a lot of that is reflected again in the music, you know, with certain songs. There's one song actually on the album Dread for Adolescence, is called Age, and it's a lyrically remarkable song, because my mum was about, she must have been about 20, 21 when she wrote the song, and she's imagining herself, or she's kind of decrying the fact that she's too old. You know, she's losing her looks, you know, and it's kind of, you know, it's the lyrics, it's like, you know, darling, am I looking old? Tell me, dear, I must be told. You know, it's $1 million fear when lines creep in over here. And you know, she was very, very aware of the pressures that, you know, unfortunately, that women performers, they just have this horrible level of scrutiny about the way they look, that has often nothing to do with the content of, you know, of their art or music. And, you know, men tend to not get that kind of similar scrutiny. They, you know, they're kind of respected as artists, and no one really cares what they look like.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know, and I was thinking too, in relation to her personal journey. I mean, at the end of this film, we see her wrestling with her bipolar disorder. We see her go on almost a spiritual quest to sort of find balance. I was wondering what it is that you feel like she was looking for.
I think, you know, it's, again, it comes back to that search, I think, that we all have, again, because, you know, these are a lot of these themes in the film, they're universal themes, and we all have this journey in life to discover who we are. But I think for my mother, that was kind of, that journey was disrupted by, you know, being kind of catapulted into this like crazy, you know, music scene, and being in the spotlight, and that kind of disrupted her sense of self, because, you know, she was a teenager, so she was not fully formed in terms of her identity. So that kind of was a bit of a break. And then, of course, she had like a breakdown as well, nervous breakdown. And so I think, you know, after those experiences, she was really kind of determined, I think, more than most people, to, you know, to find out who she was and be true to who she was, and grow as a person and grow spiritually. These things just took on that kind of level of intense importance to my mum.
Wow. Yeah. You know, just I see that we're getting shorter on time, Celeste. But one of the things I was wondering too is for you, this process of has it helped you reframe or see your mom in any new light? Is there anything that has helped you in your relationship with her throughout this process?
Absolutely. I think, first of all, you know, I've come to appreciate my mother as an individual. And I think that's, you know, something difficult to do when you're thinking about your parents, because you always see your parents in relation to you. So to see them as individuals in their own right, you know, that's kind of a life journey in itself, isn't it? So I think making this film definitely helped me to understand my mother as an individual, to respect her as an individual, and to appreciate, and also to appreciate her legacy, and to actually kind of grapple with that has been really beneficial for me, in terms of coming to terms with and putting into perspective our relationship, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one more question before we wrap up. I was wondering, um, what is it that you think we need to learn from the story of your mother?
I mean, it's hard to say one thing, but, you know, people like my mum, they set us a challenge, and I think one of the challenges is about integrity and being true to ourselves. And are we prepared to be true to ourselves, even if that has potentially negative consequences, even if that won't make us popular or we may be ridiculed, you know, are we prepared to do what it takes to be, you know, true to who we really are? I hope that's what people take away from the film, is that just that asking themselves that question.
Thank you so much. Honestly, the film is a joy, Celeste.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate you taking us on this journey with you and your mother. And
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you, Steve.